Well, I suspect there isn't a minister and likely a priest who hasn't read for someone's wedding ceremony these words that come out of Paul's first of four letters to the church at Corinth. Now, keep in mind that Paul was making a genuine effort to try to assist this new gathering of followers of Jesus. They were made up of Jews who had come to the conclusion that Jesus was, in fact, the Messiah, and a host of other folks who were often identified as Gentiles. That is to say, they were not Jewish. They came from a whole myriad of backgrounds. And Paul is trying to bring them together, keep them focused on the love of God. And then he says in the 13th chapter, I may be able to speak the language of men and even of angels, but if I have not love, my speech is no more than a noisy gong and a clanging bell. I may have the gift of inspired preaching. I may have all knowledge and understand all secrets. I may have all the faith needed to move mountains. But if I have not love, I am nothing. I may give away everything I have and even give up my body to be burned. But if I have not love, it does me no good. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or conceited or proud. Love is not ill-mannered or selfish or irritable. Love does not keep a record of wrongs. Love is not happy with evil. Its faith, hope, and patience never fail. Love is eternal. There are inspired messages, but they are temporary. There are gifts of speaking, but they will cease. There is knowledge, but it will pass. For our gifts of knowledge and of inspired messages are only partial. But when what is perfect comes, then what is partial will disappear. When I was a child, my speech, feelings, and thinking were all those of a child. But now I'm a man. I have no more use for childish ways. What we see now is a dim image in the mirror. Then we shall see face to face. What I know now is only partial. Then it will be complete as God's knowledge of me. Meanwhile, these three remain: faith, hope, and love. And Paul says the greatest of these is love. Now, you know that tomorrow, as I indicated earlier, is Valentine's Day. I may have told you this, but Valentine's Day, it came as a result of, I later discovered 3 priests who were martyred early in the 2nd and 3rd century because of their faith in Jesus. One of them was martyred in Rome, and he was a priest who defied Claudius, the emperor of Rome. They were engaged in a fairly large number of very unpopular battles and wars, and the people were growing weary of those battles because they were losing their sons and they were losing their fathers, young men who were dying in battle. Well, Valentine, who was a common priest, he was not a bishop, he was not a leader of any large, massive group of followers of Jesus, a very small congregation, and he saw what was happening. He saw the unhappiness of the mothers and fathers who were losing their sons, wives who were losing their husbands. Claudius had declared that marriages had to cease. And so he said, no more marriages. We can't do marriages. We need these single men to go off to war. And what Valentine did was very quietly and in secret and clandestine, he married all the young men who wanted to be married, and they were indeed then exempt from going to war. Well, after having done that for a period of time, somehow it was discovered that he was doing it. He was arrested and convicted of defying the emperor and was declared to be executed. While in prison, the jailer's daughter would bring in food for the prisoners. I gather Valentine found her to be charming, and he lost his head over her. You'll find out that's not the only thing that happened. Well, she would bring these nice gifts, and he would speak with her, and he would occasionally send notes to her and say, from your Valentine. Well, he was executed. And not only did he lose his head over this young woman, but he lost his head on the chopping block as well. Valentine died in 270 AD, or CE, as some do. So Valentine's Day is a day when we focus on love, and I need to share with you one of the things that happened to me, and I ask your forgiveness, Nancy, if I reveal a secret, perhaps. But after we had begun dating, Nancy and I, the occasion came for Valentine's Day, and I thought I would impress Nancy with a dozen roses. Now, I was a farm boy, and I was not very knowledgeable about much of anything. But I did know that yellow roses were to be used when you want to express friendship. Well, I didn't want to express friendship. I wanted her to know that I was feeling quite enamored with her, and there was a fair amount of passion on my part that she and I remained together. So I gave her a dozen red roses. When I arrived that evening for us to go out for a walk and then stop at one of the little cafes and have perhaps a hamburger, because I'd blown most of my net worth on the flowers, I was greeted by Nancy, who said, "Wow, what a nice gift. Why did you spend so much money on all those flowers?" I said, "I only sent you a dozen." She said, "A dozen? I got 32 roses." Well, it turns out the florist shop had mixed up our order, and I got somebody's wedding anniversary order, and they got my 12 dozen or my 12 roses. I'm sure the florist shop made it right for the wedding party. They didn't take away the 32 from Nancy. Well, Nancy's friends in the dormitory, they were impressed with this guy, hang on to him. I was a little worried that they might discover that I had made a mistake, or the florist had made a mistake, and I wasn't as great as they thought I was. 58 years later, we're still married. Thank you, Nance. There are lots of ways in which, when you have a relationship, someone you love deeply and care about, whoever that might be that you love, and know that this is the right person for you. You do all kinds of things to demonstrate that love and that affection. Flowers, sometimes candy. And by the way, you should know that if you need some trivia later this afternoon, you can say to somebody, "Did you know that this year $23.9 billion will be spent for Thanksgiving Day or for Valentine's Day?" 23.9. Well, my purchase of those 12 flowers didn't amount to much as compared with that rate, but it's massive. Paul speaks to the church, to the gathering, the early gathering of those who are following Jesus. And if you've read more of the letters in the New Testament, you'll discover that one of the things that is said about God is that God is love. That is to say, When we think about God, think about love. Now, the kind of love that is often identified both by Paul and John and James and a score of others all through the New Testament is the kind of love that I've repeatedly said comes from the word agape. Paul was extremely gifted as a scholar. He was well trained, had Pharisee background. His family was deeply enmeshed within the Jewish community. And Paul also knew Greek. He knew a score of other languages, but he chose the term agape. Now, it's interesting when you listen to what Paul says about love. This love is better than, is greater than, is more powerful than, is more necessary than anything else that you might possess. You may be the smartest person on the block, or maybe the smartest person in all the universe. But Paul says, if you don't have love, you don't have anything. If you have all the possessions that you would ever hope for and hope for more, all the things that you might have, all the power that you might have, all of the influence you might have, all of those who might bow to you because of your power and your might, if you don't have love, you are nothing. You may be able to speak in all kinds of languages. You may be able to speak in tongues, Paul says. But if you don't have love, you're wasting your time. Now, it's very clear that when couples come to be married, they often now will say, we'd like to write our own vows. And so they usually say something about, I will be honest and I will treasure you and value you and I will respect you and I will love you. And I sometimes wonder when I'm doing visits with couples who are to be married, whether they've thought through what they really are saying. There have been weddings that I have done that I wish I hadn't said I would, because they ended sometimes rather quickly. Fascinating for me is that one of them was my brother, who by the time he had reached about the 20th day of their marriage, they were already separated. Then he married again, and I did that wedding, and then he left that woman, and then they got together again, and they wanted me to marry them again. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And that one didn't last very long either. You see, we can make all kinds of promises. We can make all kinds of pledges. We can make all kinds of commitments. We can write contracts about the relationships we have with one another. But if we don't have love, says Paul, and it's nothing. So one person that I've quoted frequently has said, you can tell me what your faith is. You can verbalize what you believe. You can put it in all kinds of fancy words, but show me your faith. Demonstrate your faith. That's what God did. See, the message that has come to us in such a very simple way is, I want to give you my love. I want you to know that I will sacrifice whatever I need to sacrifice to convince you that I love you and care about you. And so Jesus is sent, is given. Jesus says, indeed, love your neighbor as I have loved you. And said to Peter and to the other disciples, if you truly love me, then take care of one another. Take care of the sheep, which is the people. Do you truly love me? Oh, yes, I do. And then you can hear Peter being a little irritated that Jesus asks him a third time. Take care and be faithful. It's important, in essence, he was saying to Peter, it's not enough to talk the talk. Anybody can talk the talk. But if you really believe, then walk the walk. And all but one of the disciples, we believe, from historical tradition and records, died as a result of martyrdom. They truly knew how to walk the walk. This priest who died, whose name is Valentine, was willing to walk the walk on behalf of his Lord. See, whoever you love, the person you want to be with, your neighbor that you say you love, someone you've just met who's a friend, who clearly, the minute they open their mouth, you know they're different than you. You're called to love. I'm over and over again reminded of Jesus, who didn't ask people to say some kind of formula that allowed them to be loved by him. He just simply loved them. He just did it. The 10 lepers who came to him, including one who was a Samaritan, who was hated by the Jews, who was rejected by the Jews because they thought differently about God and about the law and about life. He healed them. And it is so meaningful that the one who came back was a Samaritan. The one who came back was the one who had been rejected and thought to be the sinner. And the priest walks by the man who is laying in the ditch, who's been beaten and robbed, and he's going to die if somebody doesn't do something about him. The priest walks by. The religious people just ignored him. And the Samaritan, again, the good Samaritan, stops, offers him assistance out of the ditch, helps him to get healing for his wounds, provides him with something to eat and to drink, and then provides him with a place to stay. Nancy and I were in an accident on the way back from Colorado. We were out visiting her brother and his family. And on the way back, we rear-ended a car in a fairly serious snowstorm in a cloud of snow dust that was created by the snowplow that was pushing the snow off the edge of the road, the highway, 4-lane highway. We're on the inner 2-lane. The car in front of me, I saw go into the cloud of snow, and then it stopped. And I had no chance. There was a trucker who was with the sugar beet company hauling a load of sugar beets to be processed. And he stopped immediately. Came running across the median strip through the snowbanks, got a hold of Nancy and the boys and got them in his truck, took them after the police had come and the ambulance had come, and I was hauled off to the emergency room to get my chin fixed. Took them to a motel, paid for the motel, got them settled, and left. What a good Samaritan. You see, we're called on to truly love. I've used this song and I love it. Thank you for sharing the words. It's words that I've used with children, but I've used them with you. Love is something, if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something, if you give it away, you'll end up having more. Oh, it's such a delightful gift. A gift of love that comes to others because it's come to us. It's John who says, if you say you love God and you don't love your neighbor, you don't love God. But if you say you love God and you love your neighbor, then you know God because God is in you. Love is something, if you give it away, give it away. give it away. Love is something, if you give it away, you'll end up having more. So let's go dancing till the break of day. And if there's a piper, we can pay. For love is something, if you give it away, you end up having more. Join me. Love is something, if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something, if you give it away, you'll end up having more. That love will make you happy beyond imagination. And you will be blessed because you have given it, and those to whom you give it will be richly blessed. God bless you.